Greetings, Earthlings, wisdom keepers, wisdom seekers. Welcome back to Wisdom Dropz. You are Zora's for daily drops and wisdom and Savvy Cat Astrology. Telling you lasagna back again, layering together all the nodal noodles and celestial sauce into something digestible. And today we're discussing the Scorpio new moon eclipse, which is perfecting today as I record this on October 25th, 2022. At approximately 6:48 a.m. This is an interesting one, not only because it's in the sign of Scorpio, but because there's a conjunction with a freshly cazimi Venus. And cazimi, if you don't already know, is the conjunction of any given planet with, you guessed it, the sun, as you see on your screen. So the little pink planet here, Venus conjunct the sun, it just went exact literally a few days ago, that conjunction. So she's like born again. She's been, all the fat has been burned off. All of the evil or the negative aspects of Venus, in theory, should be purged at this time, at least in some way, shape, or form in our life. And because it is during an eclipse time, one would like to think that's significantly so. So we're going to jump into all these details. We're going to break some of this down and get to the practicalities of it all. But before we do, make sure you like this video and subscribe if you have not already to this channel. Thank you so much for everybody who does. Hit that like button and subscribes. Whoop, whoop. Subscribers in the house. All right, so let's jump on in, y'all. What did I just say? It's an eclipse. Why is it an eclipse? Because the south node, not pictured here, but exactly opposite this 13-degree little horseshoe looking thing over in Taurus, is in fact in Scorpio at the time of this lunation. So there's a new moon event conjunct the nodes, which makes it an eclipse, right? Scorpio is the sign of death. Scorpio is the sign of transformation, of debt, of drama in the deepest sense. That is trauma. It's very related to all of the dark things that nobody wants to deal with. And it's related to all, sorry for the background noise. I hope it's like not too distracting. But anyways, it's related to all the dark things that nobody wants to deal with, like poop and, you know, literal poop and feces and like the birth of a child. Like children are seen by Cancer, you know, the mother energy, but it's like the process of actually giving birth is Scorpio. It's very traumatic in a certain way, right? And maybe it's not, but I would like to think it is, given that shoving a human through a small hole like that has to be painful at minimum, right? But point being, like, you're looking at a period where there's a lot of this phoenix vibes, which I always like to refer to as, like, you know, the phoenix is like this magical creature that can arise from the ashes of something that's been burned to the ground. So what does that relate to for you in your life? It's a new moon conjunct the south node, so that's an interesting little mix by itself before you add Scorpio to it. The south node is where you release, it's the purging point, it's what's meant to be shed or let go of. The new moon is a new beginning, as we've all heard 1,000,001 times. So you take the south node, what are you releasing that is traumatic and scorpionic and needs to go, with this idea of a new beginning in mind? And Venus is here to conjunct this, so it's all about, you know, the femininity, and it's all about this idea of, you know, where is it that women, if you are a woman or if you know a woman who you know needs some shedding or some purging, where is it that that relates for you in your life? Of course, you can look at your chart and understand this based on degrees, based on houses, all the more, and maybe add a little more clarity to that. I do offer personal readings at Wizdom, Dropz, Astrology, all Z's, except for Astrology, Wizdom, and Dropz are Z's. Astrology.com. If you want to get a personal session, you're more than welcome to book there. You can also go ahead and book with other people, obviously, who you feel are good astrologers. But I think that it's critical that you pay attention to this energy right now, because, you know, I guess whether you pay attention to it or not, it's going to be making big changes in your life. And the reason that you want to think about that is because Scorpio is very like deep, and it's like, what is the depth? Like, you're gonna be feeling it. You already know the answer to that. If you've been thinking about something at all during this astrology report, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's something deep, it's something dark, and it's something traumatic in your life. And for more information on that, you can find you know, specific information based on your chart, but I don't even think you're going to need it because it's going to be so obvious. Now, I think that something to focus on too is that the midheaven is at 29 degrees of Cancer at this time, which is a pretty dark degree. It's kind of like a crisis degree, and it's exactly opposite Pluto down there. I mean, and not exactly, there's a 3-degree orb, but that's still really tight. So it's kind of like, what is a crisis that is kind of provoking or propelling this change forward? And of interest as well is that this midheaven to Pluto opposition we see in the chart is in a T-square configuration with the actual lunation itself. So there's a lot of energy, in other words, of crisis and change being kind of like brought into this new beginning. And so whatever this new beginning is, it would be my professional astrological assumption or like conclusion that that new beginning that we're all talking about, that's going to be so massive and so powerful and so deep with the Scorpio energy, is not coming out of like niceties. It's not coming out of the roses in the garden. It's not coming out of something light and breezy. It's coming out of something really serious, and really like emotionally driven, and probably related to home and work in some capacity with that Cancer Capricorn axis. If not that, then legacy, and this notion of like, what are you leaving behind? But all the energy, as you'll notice in that red triangle, is directed to the new moon in Scorpio. So it's really all about that transformation, and it's really all about so here's your lemon and here's your water. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to purify this? What are you going to do to make lemonade? If you can, that's kind of the like spiritual to do. Something I do like looking at this is that there is some harmonious energy going on to Mars, and Mars is the original ruling planet of Scorpio. So Mars is over here chilling at 25 degrees of Gemini, doing Mars's thing. And you'll notice that when I hover over Mars, if it's live on the share, that is, there are some blue lines. Okay. So that's specifically some trinage, some trines that we're seeing sent over to the ascendant degree at the time of this eclipse, at least based on the geographic place that I put in, which is like the Midwest US. So I think that's a saving grace in some ways for those of us in the Midwest. Another thing that I would like to point out is that Mercury is still by a 3-degree range. So regardless where you are in the world, Mercury is being kind of like spared, or a sparing force, supporting that and elevating that Mars and Gemini energy. Okay. So there is this certain like, okay, well, you know, there's this shit show scenario that's going to propel you into newness and a new action, but Mercury and Mars are there to support at the end of the day, which I think is really helpful, because Mars is again the ruling planet, okay, of Scorpio. Now, not to be ignored is that Pluto opposite midheaven I talked about earlier, and Pluto is of course the modern ruler of Scorpio. So yeah, there is that, but again, this midheaven is just relative to this time and space, the space rather, that I pulled the chart for. So it's not anything to read like too into, because that was pretty much if you're in the Midwest US. It's not like everywhere in the world, right? So anyways, this is more relevant to everybody in the digital room right now, and that is because Mars and Mercury are not changing degrees based on your geographic placement in the world. So anyways, I do think it's a time for purging. I do think there is a new kind of like beginning that is like really big and bold. I think all of us within the next 6 months are going to know what this new beginning is that came from trauma or came from a release of trauma. It's definitely reading like there's been a release of something subconscious. There is destined to be a release of something self-conscious, or subconscious rather, because Venus rules the 12th house from Scorpio, which is Libra. And she just went cazimi and is yet still at an exact conjunction of a 2-degree placement. So I think that that freshness of that rebirth Venus conjunct the new moon of new things, newness, new beginnings in the sign of Scorpio, which is all happening conjunct, you know, the south node happening there as well. So that's like a major release with a major beginning. It's like a slingshot or a mousetrap. It's like something where something is released, so something happens. That's the energy that I'm like trying to communicate. It's like something got pulled back and let go, like a bow from an arrow, and it's like this release that happens because of it. So something is releasing and something is moving forward. So as always, I really hope this is the best possible reality for you in your life. I'm hoping the best for everybody in our little community here and beyond. I really hope that this is a positive manifestation for you. I am willing to bet it's not going to be an easy one, especially if this is hitting personal places in your chart. I do wish you the best in your journey, and I do think it's important whenever dealing with Scorpio energy, as like a concluding thought here, that you can always, the thing about Scorpio energy is it's like the worst, right? It's like it can literally be the worst. I talk a lot about Scorpio. People like my Scorpio content. I tend to give Scorpio a lot of reverence because I've seen it in my life as that. But the truth is, I've also seen the darkest side of Scorpio and that energy. And I will say to you that it can definitely be the worst. It's the hardest, it's the toughest, it's the most painful that you could ever have. It's the most painful that you can ever have. Okay. And what I want to say to you is that regardless of what you're going through or will go through during this time, I really wish for you that you can find your own inner power, in that regardless what's happening to you, you can find your response and find some type of um power in how you choose to respond. Okay. Woo! Okay, Scorpios, you know what I'm talking about. With that said, thanks for all the support. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, share with friends if it felt relevant or supportive to you and possibly to them. And with that said, wisdomdropsastrology.com, link down below if you want to get a reading. Through next time, until next time, may the stars be with you. Peace.